All right, welcome everybody. Randy Denha and I are looking forward to sitting down with Alex Calderone. He is the managing director at Calderone Advisory Group, and Nishant Holani, who is the co-founder and strategic commercial at Strategic Commercial Capital. Fellas, welcome. Thanks for taking time to talk to us today. I've been looking forward to this talk because you guys are so in the trenches of just the world and the markets and what's going on with everything. And so I know I wanted to jump in and ask you a question about just what turnaround means today. I know you work with a lot of companies in turnaround situations. And to me, today in the world, everyone's playbook is brand new, doesn't exist. Everybody's rewriting a playbook. And so I think the word turnaround almost has new meaning. But what does it mean to you guys, and what are you seeing in the market right now?
Nishant, do you want to go first, or?
Go ahead, Alex.
Okay, so, John, with me, I can answer your question, maybe not in a way that you'll like the answer.
Don't worry about me.
So I cannot make sense of the market right now.
Okay. Can anyone?
Sorry?
I don't think anybody can. Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stimulation. Our political leaders, our central banks, everyone is stimulating the market. It's very, very tough for the market, in my opinion, to determine appropriate pricing and valuations. I mean, we see it in the stock market, but that trickles down to Main Street and to the companies that I personally am working with as well. So I used to tell people when folks wanted us to prepare projections, by design, projections are either wrong or they're lucky. And in the present environment, I would say multiply that statement by 1,000. It's just impossible to understand what's going on. And my fear, the real concern that I have, in my quarantine lockdown, I like to watch movies. I have a nice theater in my basement, and I watch movies. And one of the movies I watched, for example, was Pet Sematary. If you recall that movie, it's a great 1980. Yes, and in that movie, really, without going into too much detail, the theme of that movie was when you take, in this case, it was human beings that die, that just have passed away, that should be dead, and you try to bring them back to life, bad things tend to happen. So I think, unfortunately, we're in a zombie company environment. I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing bankers that would have had heavy hands a year or 2 or 3 years ago, or even in the context of the last downturn, that are just afraid of the social responsibility associated with letting a company go under in the present environment. I'm seeing, capital that's coming in where risk is just completely being disregarded. And I think to some extent, because interest rates are so low, because we have so much stimulus money out there, these PPP loans, certainly they were a good thing for many companies, but I'm seeing a situation now where the PPP money has come in and we're dealing with zombies. So I hate answering the question that way. It was a long-winded response, but I can't make sense of what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'm hearing you say, and I hear what you're saying, is it's really day by day. Like the market is today what it is today. To forecast and project, it's impossible. Nobody can forecast 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out today. It's about daily execution to get out of it, and the daily grind, and using just minimal data to forecast and project. I think. Nishant, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Nishant.
No, I think we're more on the real estate side, as we're dealing directly with the companies and working directly with many different lenders. Like you said, we can't predict the market. You have various attitude in the market. When you deal with community banks, their attitude is a lot different. We want to be there. We want to keep lending. Versus when we deal with big banks, they're saying, look, we're going to sit on the sideline because right now we feel like there was all this PPP money. A lot of the small business had deferred their payments to these small businesses for 6 months. So nobody felt the pinch yet. While your traditional lenders have deferred 3 months payments. So I think as we move on, we're going to see the real picture as what is really happening. How are these businesses are surviving, such as commercial real estate and retail? Hospitality is another one. So I think the real picture is going to be in the third and fourth quarter to see what is small business are going to do. Are they still going to help defer payments down the road to try to get these businesses back on their feet? Or, are they going to say, look, we've done all we could. Now you guys got to kind of figure it on your own. But, in this environment, we are still finding ways to get deals done. There's still a lot of guys out there that want to do deals. But investors also on the side are sitting on the sideline saying, look, we're waiting for that steal. We're waiting for a bunch of, assets to hit back to the market, whether it's with the lenders, servicers, receivers, and then we want to take advantage of the downturn. So there's kind of, like you said, there's a mixed momentum going on right now. A lot of guys are saying, look, we're past all this. Let's move on and carry on. And versus a lot of the traditional banks are saying, we got to wait and see what really unfolds in third and fourth quarter before we can start putting more assets on the balance sheet.
So I have a question for Nishant and Alex. With respect to your borrowers that you're dealing with, Nishant, and then for you, Alex, the customer, every asset class is affected differently. I know right now, hospitality is getting murdered. Obviously, corporate travel is down. People aren't spending. People aren't really vacationing. I mean, people are spending more money on their houses because they're spending more time at home. So, these distressed industries, what are you speaking to clients about, not in terms of the expertise that you offer, but in terms of consoling them, in terms of getting them through the rut? In other words, resetting their mind to, the storm that they may be in and drawing on your experience to bring them out. What are you seeing in terms of that, in terms of offering that intangible? What are the conversations you're having? Nishant.
Well, that's a really good question because we, as you know, Randy, are very heavily involved in hospitality lending. And believe it or not, that sector is still going on, but at a very lower level. Meaning like you said, your bigger hospitality brands like Marriott, Hilton, those are primary on leisure and business. And like you said, none of that is happening right now. So those are hurting quite a bit. But where you have your mid-scale to lower class hotels, which are for your construction or your transit, that transactions are still happening. But the lenders are very cautious. Most of the lenders are on the sideline, but you're seeing these hotels that are lower to mid-scale hotels, they are still having 25, 30, 35, 40, 45% occupancies versus your bigger that are strictly on, like you said, leisure and business are probably at 5 to 10% occupancy. And we're starting to see that same thing is happening with retail. Retail, you're seeing a lot of retail sectors. We're looking at a lot of retail deals right now. And number one thing that we're focusing on, who is your tenant type versus essential and non-essential. And that's the song and dance that we have done for the last 3 months is who is going to make it and who's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And that is the sector that we have to be very careful. For example, we just financed a high-rise office building last week. We just closed down. Very low loan to value in a good market. Any lender would have said this is a no-brainer. But we had to go through to get a detailed report of each that tenant that's in there. How are they doing to survive? What are they doing? Are they cutting down their hours? Are they cutting down their payroll? What is? So we had to do a strategic study on each of the tenants to figure out, are these guys going to make it or not, for our lenders to get comfortable. So like you said, every sector is very risky, but we're trying to educate our clients and saying, look, let's mitigate the risk right now. You need to refinance right now where we're going to see the values are not going to be there, what they owe on it. So that's another problem that we are facing right now is at what point does the borrower step in and say, look, either my lender is going to work with me. Why am I putting good money after bad? I can't refinance. My lender wants me out. I can't refinance. So somebody's got to give.
Yeah.
And you having that conversation, look, hold on right now to what you have. And some way, form, or shape, either talk to your lender to defer you further, maybe do interest-only payments. But a lot of these guys are kind of jumping to the gun. It's been 3 months and say, look, we can't make our payments. Well, wait a minute. It's only been 3 months. What's going to happen next 8-9 months? How are we going to handle this? And this is becoming very challenging because not it's only scary for the borrower, but it's becoming very, very hard on the lending side because lenders are getting very, very nervous as what's going to happen as we move on. Is the bank willing or the lenders are willing to still give these guys more time? Hey, you don't need to make a payment for another 3 months. Well, how long can the lender do that?
Yeah.
They got their balance sheet too that they've got to run.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Alex, any thoughts on that? Thanks so much, Nishant.
Yeah, I mean, look, the first thing I'll say is not even though I am a turnaround guy, not every one of my clients is actually distressed right now. And in the present environment, I mean, one of the unique trends that I think we've seen throughout this 10+ year long period of economic growth that ended in February, call it, was these secular recessions, right? So we saw one with metals in 2015. We've seen one with retail that's probably lasted the entire expansion, oil and gas, obviously. And I think we're still seeing that. And the impact on the pandemic it's just throwing into that bucket of companies that are in the secular type of downturn, more companies, for example. So commercial properties, the mall owners, folks like that. But surprisingly, I mean, I have a client, for example, that's in the defense industry, and that particular client is a key subcontractor to the U.S. Navy and the Navy's two prime contractors. And with all the geopolitical uncertainty that we have going on and the tensions with China, they're killing it. I mean, when I came in a year ago, I would have said, I don't know if this company survives. And it's a complete 180. And I'm working with them on different things now now I'm trying to figure out how do we actually profitably process through this major backlog of work, for example. So not every company is distressed, but the common denominator and the advice that I have been giving to everyone, I was giving to everyone long before this happened, and that I continue to give to people now, really what my business revolves around is just paying attention to cash flow. And the monkey wrench that I mentioned earlier that's been thrown into the situation now is that it's very hard to project revenues in the present environment because of all the uncertainty. One day the sky looks clear, the other day you have a category 3 hurricane that seems to be approaching. But really, fundamentally, whatever business that you're speaking about, if you could try to prognosticate where the cash flows are going to be and get ahead of any hit in cash flow, and frankly, if a business no longer has the ability to generate cash flow, figure out the right way to shut it down so that you're not just deepening the hole and deepening the insolvency. That's typically what we do. So a lot of things that people didn't need to worry about in the past. I mean, a CFO isn't capable of producing an environment that is analytically rigorous. We're not good with 13-week cash flow forecast. We don't know how to build a integrated financial projection model going out 90 days, let alone 2 or 3 or 4 years. These are the types of skill sets that we're working with people on that we never stopped working with them on. But in an environment like this, those types of creating those types of capabilities just becomes exponentially more important.
Yeah. I appreciate your guys' insight on that. I have a question on a couple of things that we've been talking about. Randy's talking about mindsets. Nishant, you're talking about the nervousness of the banks. Alex, you're talking about paying attention to cash flow and projecting revenue. As I look at the market today, as I look at the just economy, and I see companies like Facebook who are going, changing their whole business model to working remotely, post pandemic. Other companies, I could name handfuls of them. And you have Amazon these last 3 months who have crushed it, because I know, at least for me, my life was based on 9 Amazon packages minimum a day coming to my house, right? And so retail, to me, is going to be greatly affected for many, many reasons over the next 1, 2, 3 years. Office is going to be greatly affected over the next 1, 2, 3 years. My own 2 cents, I think people will be hungry to start traveling again, and everybody needs a place to live for multifamily. But so I'd like to kind of zoom in a little bit on what you guys are thinking. And I know, Alex, we can't forecast. We're just kind of, jawboning some potentials. What is going to happen to the retail and office space in the next 3 years, and how is it going to affect our world?
Well, look, I operate just a small office in Birmingham, and we have 7 employees in the firm. And I can tell you right now, John, a week or so ago, I got an email from, I believe it was Lara, the state regulatory agency, telling me about all these precautions that I would have to follow in order to physically open Randy, I see you're smiling. You probably got the same thing. And I had to call my attorney and get this policy in place. And, and then I'm reading about these lawsuits where if you have an employee that goes somewhere and infects a client, or if your employees get infected at your office, you potentially have liability. I'm not the attorney, Randy is. But those things make me petrified. So for someone like me who's able to run a business where my people can work remotely, we can work on Zoom meetings and through the cloud, I personally am questioning the value of the office space that I'm using right now. My people aren't comfortable coming into work. A lot of them, some might, but a few of them have already said, look, I don't want to risk. I'm potentially high risk. So, I would not want to be someone who owns commercial office buildings right now. I wouldn't want to be there. I do think that you miss out on some degree of productivity when you have everyone working remotely. But if the consequence of bringing people together is someone dies from the coronavirus, I think at the end of the day, I would rather choose to keep people working remotely. So I think commercial office space is going to be in big trouble. From a retail perspective, I've done some work in retail. My firm back in 2017 worked with Radio Shack. When it was their second.
Should we explain to the millennials and the Gen Zs who are watching right now what Radio Shack is?
Yeah.
It's like what our grandparents talk about. Oh, I used to eat at the corner of blah, 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 the tuna fish sandwich.
Yeah. It's, but nonetheless on Radio Shack, I had kind of a front row seat to the disruption that had been impacting the retail business back then. And I personally don't think that people's spending patterns and behavioral changes that are now being ingrained in people as a result of this pandemic, I don't think they're changing. So brick and mortar retail to me, particularly, people who are in shopping malls, I think they're going to be facing a very long and challenging road back to recovery. Now, at the end of the day, if you're selling clothes, for example, people still want to try things on. So might you see some of that physical footprint stay around so that people can try things on, or maybe as distribution centers? Yeah, but I think we will see a rapid disruption of the entire retail industry over the next few years, even more so than we have seen.
Yeah. I know somebody was mentioning they went to the mall recently, and they said that sales, at least at Somerset, I heard, at one department store, I think it was Saks, they said that the commission checks are going to be larger for the salespeople than what they received during Christmas time. So people were hungry for, perhaps sales, the experience, or to go out, because of this pent-up demand, as Jonathan mentioned, just to go out there and be part of, the fabric of the community again.
Right.
But, these department stores, I think the whole, like you mentioned, Alex, I think the retail experience is going to change drastically. I, for one, I have no interest in going, around crowds and crowds of people. until there's, at least some normalcy out there or a vaccine. And I'm certainly not going to have my parents go out. But my question, and again, is, Simon Group and the Taubman companies just broke up. What's behind that? Again, the storyline is what the storyline is, but I'm sure there's something more. But if that's any indication, this is saying a lot about the retail space, because you can easily go in and order online. And trying on an outfit, I understand, according to this person that mentioned over the weekend, you try something on, they have to go and basically fumigate it for 72 hours before that fabric comes back down to the department store again. It's very disruptive, and it's very inefficient and very, very expensive.
Yeah. So what was your question?
Well, my question was, you mentioned 1, 2, 3 years. What's the long-term forecast? Is the mall going to be the same?
Well,
your experience.
Or I'll add to that question too, Randy. How will the lenders look at the mall? Right? Like how are lenders looking at malls? I think I think I can speak for everyone on this call. But when you have if you think you're having a bad day, and then just think about what Taubman was going through that day when they got we're canceling the $3.6 billion. That's a bad. But how do the banks look at that? How are they using that data and saying, okay, we're using this data, and this is how we're going to dissect it for the next couple months.
Well, I personally think it's a little premature right now to kind of see what's really going to transpire in the malls. Because like you said, everybody's been stuck at home. The minute things are opening, people are running to get out, to kind of let loose a little bit. As procedures are changing, the malls are changing I feel like that you and I will have to adapt to that culture. And I feel like, malls cannot completely go away. People still need to get out, touch, feel kind of thing. There's a lot of that stuff is still turning online. You can do pretty much everything online, but I feel a lot of people still want to be able to get out and still be able to get to the mall to do their shopping. So I don't think that it's going to be as bad as what we're thinking, but as I think that whatever the changes that we're going to go through, which is going to be the new norm, I think people are going to adapt to that. You can't see Somerset, for example, 5 years down the road and major retailers are shutting down their doors. I can't see that happening. A lot of these high-end stores, the demand is still there. People to buy high-end stuff, they'd rather go to the mall to look at it, touch it, feel it before they buy it versus buying it online. And eventually, if they don't like it, they have to send it back.
Yeah. You know what I think, though? I think one of the things we're going to see as we're going through this and post-COVID is e-commerce companies are going to have to continually look at their e-commerce platforms and not only and continually evolve their e-commerce experience as well as their in-person experience. And if their experience has to keep on evolving and evolving and evolving. And to me, e-commerce as far as, not only what you're selling, but even for professional service firms, how they're using e-commerce, how are they training their people? How are they treating their customers, targeting and messaging their customers? I think that, and this has been said from a bunch of us, the experience has got to be a true experience. Curbside is the greatest. Curbside is the greatest, right? And so that used to be for the elites. Now it's for the masses. And so what other things are where's the next idea of what curbside looks like, right? Concierge, whatever that is. But to me, that's the race. The race is how effective people can be in e-commerce. And I would think that then the banks will look at it and say, like they do Wall Street, oh, your e-commerce platform is projected to do X, Y, and Z, yada, 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 right? And so that to me is going to be, companies have the responsibility today to set a platform, in my opinion, using e-commerce and experience to project and forecast their profitability. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, look, John, what I would say is any retail bankruptcy turnaround workout that I have ever had to be involved in, the catalyst for my involvement was always a dispute between the landlord and the retail operator, right? Because if you look at someone who is a brick and mortar retailer, those lease expenses, that's typically the largest cost on the income statement. It's a fixed cost, and it's not really very easy to work around that line item on the P&L. It's always the thing that gets the most focus. And frankly, the reason why you're seeing all of these bankruptcies is usually, I mean, sometimes it's to address the lenders, but most of the time it's to address the landlords, because if you're not generating cash flow and you can't pay them rent, they will start putting padlocks on the doors, and now the business can't operate. So when I look at, like, in the immediate future of brick and mortar retail, I think when we ask the question, what's going to happen to the mall? A lot of that is going to have to do with how much risk and how patient how much risk is the landlord is going to be willing to take on, and how patient they're going to be willing to be. Because I can tell you right now, if stores that are not operating or operating at half capacity or a quarter of capacity can't generate enough cash flow to pay the rent, eventually that is going to be a catalyst for bankruptcy, and that's going to be a catalyst for pay. So, I think the landlords themselves will determine in this next round what will happen, because if you want to try to save your tenants during the context of this pandemic, you have to be extremely patient. And we're already seeing high-profile cases out there. The Gap, for example, has been one that has made the newspapers, I believe, where they're in litigation for not paying the rent. And so I think the landlords will dictate where it goes. But the question is, what else? If people aren't using office space the way that they used to, what else do you use the mall for? So I don't have any landlords who are my tenants. I know the business well. The Topman Company used to be my audit client when I was with KPMG in 2005 and 6. But if I did have a landlord for a client, I would probably be cautioning him right now to be extremely patient to the extent that he can be and still pay his fixed cost with the tenants. Because if they get too aggressive, you'll just see a mass exodus of brick and mortar stores that, in my opinion, won't reopen.
Yeah.
What effect will the second stimulus, if it does happen, have on all of this? Would that affect your decision making?
Well, I think, Randy, it depends. Are they going to bail out the landlords?
Well, that's not the case today. So
well, I know it's not. So if they don't, then I think you will see a pretty quick change in the context of what brick and mortar retail looks like. But I would not put anything past the Fed at this point. I would not put anything past politicians on either side of the fence. My biggest fear, guys, if you what keeps me up at night, it's are we going to have crazy amounts of inflation? And how does this all end? Because we have this massive everything bubble, and asset prices have gone up, and it's contributed greatly to income and wealth inequality, which I think contribute in turn to social unrest. And I'm just trying to prognosticate, saying, how do we get out of it? Does the bubble just pop? There are some people that say all bubbles will eventually pop. Does it pop, and then do we have deflation, or do we have inflation? And I will tell you right now, there is no way, if the Fed continues to be as accommodative as they are, and if we just keep hearing about things like now infrastructure spending, direct bond buys, more PPP money, continuously low interest rates, if that stuff starts happening, we could end up seeing tremendous amounts of inflation, and that is something too that I think ends up impacting a lot of these businesses, particularly retail, real estate, etc. So it just goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is it's very tough to understand where things are going when you have these outside forces and this intentional manipulation of the market, even if it's for good causes. And even if it's it might be the right thing to do, but it's tough to prognosticate where anything goes when you have a Fed it just continues to print money.
Yeah. All right, good. Hey, Randy, any last minute questions? I appreciate your guys' insight.
Yeah, well, it's any question you give to this esteemed group, you get both a macro and a micro answer. So we don't have enough time.
Well, I have one question left, fellas, and one question. A lot of kids are graduating college right now in a world that looks a lot different than they thought it would look like a couple months ago. What's one piece of advice you would give kids graduating college today?
I would say don't specialize too much. We're in such a fast-paced, constantly changing environment that I think the skills, in the past, the skills that made one successful were become an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor. Just focus on kind of one field and really specialize, and you will differentiate yourself. I think this day and age, focus on the emotional intelligence, the EQ, on the skills, adaptive skill sets that can be helpful in the context of any situation.
Yeah, well said. I agree with that.
I agree with that.
You concur, Nishant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything to, guys, I appreciate you both being on the show. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you if they want to connect with you.
For me, Alex at Calderone AG, CALDERONEAG.com.
For me, Nishant Holani at sccapital-llc.com.
Awesome. Well, fellas, I appreciate your time and your insight and your wisdom and your real-time thoughts. So thank you guys for taking time to share it. Randy, I'll let you close.
Yeah, and shaping the landscape for me. I mean, we speak to a lot of people on a daily basis, and we get all sorts of perspective. But, the one common denominator is, things are going to change, but, it's tough to forecast where it goes, but we know we're in the thick of things. And hopefully we all come out on the right side. So thank you for sharing your perspectives today.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.